What is life? Some call it a great wave which comes over you and brings you to unexpected situations. Almost like a person who enters in Australia an ocean and all of a sudden a wave comes and brings him to a cliff or wherever. Life can also be compared with a great wave, the wave of life. In spiritual life, there are usually 6 or so stations which we can find very nicely described in the life of Dhruva Maharaj. First, Dhruva Maharaj, who was born a prince, was rejected by his stepmother and his father, and it was told to him, you can never become a prince. And he understood the situation at home was a very, very constricted situation. So he went to his mother and said, who can help me to lead the life I'm meant to live? I'm born as a prince, but by some political maneuvers, I cannot take my natural position in life. Who can help me to find my place? The mother said, only one person, the Lord Himself. So it's a long story. I want to come to my own story, but I want to give it a background. When Dhruva asked his mother, where can I find God? And she said, this is a very difficult question, but I know that great rishis or saints go to the forest and meditate about Him to find Him there. So Dhruva did that. He was young. He left his place, his old home, and he went to the forest. Eventually, as he was trying to meditate in some ways, but was not getting anywhere, he met the great saint Narada Muni, and Narada Muni gave him something like an initiation into spiritual life. He gave him a mantra and a process to worship the Lord, and he said, do this and for sure you will meet God. And so Narada Muni went, and then Dhruva started to chant this mantra. You all know it, please chant it with me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. One more time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And eventually the Lord gave him his darshan. And after doing this darshan experience, Dhruva explained a feeling of being totally overwhelmed in the presence of the Lord. He said, my Lord, now that you have appeared before me and then entered into my heart, I feel so enlivened. My tears are coming. My body is thrilling. And I feel just as a most happy person. And that was the Lord's responded to that. Prabhupada writes a beautiful verse saying that someone who comes in contact with the Lord becomes enlivened, especially his sense of speech. So I have to cut today a little bit my sense of speech because Maharaj is there. Then came the most difficult part in the journey of Dhruva. The return to the place he had left, the narrow place he had left. And what he had to do is to apply the wisdom of his fully blossomed Krishna consciousness. And he was not always successful. There was a great failure in his life. He became, in brief, provoked and agitated and got into a fight, but it was not just a boring London fight. It was a battle with the yakshas, and he killed many people in that battle. And then he was told, you really didn't pass your test. So he then had a second chance, and he became the greatest transcendentalist, Dhruva Maharaj, after whom the polar star is called the Dhruva star. My dear devotees, I want to tell this traditional story to alert you to the fact that someone who goes into a genuine spiritual path will have the same stations. He will first feel, my life is narrow here, I can't continue like this. It is boring to the, hellishly boring. It is, I can't find my place in this life. Then he looks for spiritual life. After some time he meets a wise person or wise persons, and they give him a sadhana, a spiritual practice, like chanting a mantra. And when one does this, one has a divine experience, like many of us had yesterday, a contact with Krishna. But then comes the most difficult part. We have to integrate it into our life, the return to our norm, to our life, and the tests which we will see there. These stations are there in everyone's spiritual life, and the way they came to me were, I was born as a son of a, at that time not director, but he became a director, and my father very much wanted me to become a CEO. In fact, he had conceived me with that purpose. As a baby, he took a marker and wrote down CEO on my forehead. But I could see that this life was not appealing to me. My first adventure, so to say, was when I hid behind the sofa in our villa and heard or listened secretly to a family meeting where my family, where the different uncles and my father talked about money and investment, and there was a factory on the mother's side, how to build up the factory, and it was becoming a very heated discussion because Uncle Ulf was always taking millions of German marks without letting the others know and investing it in some risk business, and the rest of the family was all trembling always when they heard about it, because it was their money which Uncle Ulf took and from the accounts and invested. So this was a heating business meeting, and Uncle Ulf was going to be chastised in this meeting. And they had a facilitator, and as it was going heavy, it was going intense, people started to hurl abuses on you. Onkel Ulf, der Mistkerl! This is a strong word, I will not translate. Mistkerl. And it was getting more obscene, the language, so that the facilitator said, all right, anyone who curses will have to pay for each curse 1,000 German marks. Do you know that Uncle Uwe left that meeting with a debt of 50,000 marks? He had cursed 50 times. And I thought, well, this is a royal edition of animals. I don't want to be part of this. Let me go, let me go. There were two options. Either I would go to London and meet the Rolling Stones and become a musician. I'm not very talented, as everyone knew, but that was my dream. Or I will do something else. I will meet the leader of the Hare Krishna movement and see what happens. So Srila Prabhupada came to London. I was there, long-haired, young person who wanted to meet the Rolling Stones and make his life in that direction or become something else. And my dear devotees, this meeting with a real spiritual personality, it changed. When Prabhupada came into my life, I can only describe it like many of my God brothers. He brought with him something, he carried something. Just like Garuda carries Vishnu, Srila Prabhupada carried Krishna in his heart. And you could feel that when you were in his presence, the way he talked, the way he addressed his audience, the effect which he left, even the shine and effulgence of his person was just so absolutely transformative. But because I come from a German background, I did not want to listen to my heart. So one morning in the Bhagavatam lecture, I decided to challenge Srila Prabhupada because, you know, I liked him, but I didn't appreciate the austerity, you know, in the temple. I could not imagine to become a devotee, in other words. To give you an example, once I went to the toilet and I was accustomed to read literature at the toilet because that's the only time I was peaceful and not so engaged. So I had taken a Krishna book on the toilet. When I came out, very happily inspired by Krishna's pastimes, a devotee saw me and he said, did you take that book into the Muchi place? I said, what is a Muchi place? And when he found out that I did it, he was so, I think, and upset that he wanted to beat me. But he didn't know that I had an education in street fighting. And I went into the position and he knew, all right. You know, the martial arts position before a heavy storm. You gather your wits and you have to scream a little and then you come like a storm on your enemy. He saw that and he said, all right, let's not fight in Krishna's temple. And I said, I didn't want to do it. You did it. And so I did. It was too tough for me. I didn't know all these words and all these things and all these rules and what you could do and what you could not do. And I was upset. So I decided I will leave Krishna consciousness, but I will leave not in disgrace. I will leave gracefully by defeating the leader of the Hare Krishna movement in an argument and show that I'm better, no more than him. This is Germany. So I asked my question. I will not pose the question here because it was a catch question. And it was, I tried to be as intellectual as I could. And the way Prabhupada reacted to the provocation was masterfully. It was very strong. He knew that I wanted to go back to Maya and he knew he wanted to save me. I asked him, if Krishna is all good and the world is so bad as you described, why did he create it? An all merciful God should create a paradisical world, no? It could also only, and then Prabhupada turned to me and said, not Krishna created the world, you created the world. Meaning, not Krishna created your Maya, you created your Maya. My dear devotees, it was a bomb. It changed my whole life. I cried in the lecture because I knew now I would become a Hare Krishna. It was something not, you cannot understand it intellectually. He touched my heart and he made me into this. And yes, and then many things happened. My family tried to get me back. Maybe you know there's a German news magazine, it's called Der Spiegel, have you heard? The Mirror, like your Daily Mirror, and it carried an article about the boy who ran away from home. Many things happened, but I think what is, well, my greatest adventure, so to say, so many, but my greatest adventure is with the holy name, I would say. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the gift of Lord to us. Like it's the greatest gift, like Narada Muni gave Dhruva the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I received from Srila Prabhupada his greatest gift to all of us, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And I remember he had said that you just need to spread the holy name and Krishna will protect you. Krishna, he had written me such a letter when I was preaching in Afghanistan and was when there was people with guns behind me. He said, just continue to chant, you will be saved. So, what I wish to explain to you was a very nice, yes, very nice. Thank you. Maybe you want to even stay so yes, as to hold. We were on a tour, a preaching tour through the former Yugoslavia, and we had heard that the Serbian army had some towns in Slovenia, but we had arranged for a major program in the capital of Slovenia, Ljubljana. So we drove on the highway with our Radha Sharanagati car, and I remember all of a sudden my driver said, look, there is the army. And I said, let's overtake it. So we went on one lane where all the tanks getting, with the soldiers getting ready for the attack, the siege of Ljubljana. It's a famous siege. And we were driving next to the army with our car, and we said, so what's going on? And the soldier said, we are leveling Ljubljana to the ground. I said, can't you wait one day? I have a program there. And they said, yeah, it's not up to us to decide. They were nice guys, but they were on a killer mission. So we overtook the long caravan of tanks. I still remember the chains of the tanks making their drum beats on the autobahn. It was terrible. We arrived in the temple. We said tomorrow there will be the siege of Ljubljana. We spoke with the soldiers. The devotees said, so what should we do? Should we cancel the program? And I said, never cancel a program. It's the chance for the conditioned souls. They are full of joy, and the Prabhupada said, just preach and the holy name will protect you. So I still remember we went into the venue, and as we were going, the Serbian helicopters came and opened fire, and the bullets just went 1 meter away from us on the ground, and they announced, all civilians move out of the zone, of the city zone where the fight will take place. They did not shoot from the helicopters on us and our halava pots we were carrying, which we were carrying. They wanted to just give warning shots so that we would go far away from the military action. And again the devotee said that this was very clear, no? Should we go or should we stay? And I say, Prabhupada said we should preach the holy name. I think we can, once we are in the building, they will fight outside. And so we did it, and we opened the program. Now in the midst of the program, my dear devotees, the military action started. Our venue had big windows from top. There was a high ceiling, from the ceiling down to the earth. And when they started when the shells of the bombs exploded, the windows came down, and the hall was full. And then we said, well, now it's best we all go under the stage and hide so that we don't get shrapnel and so on. So everyone rushed forward. They came under the stage, and we just waited as we heard the explosions and the screams. Ah! You know, have you ever heard a person who's hit by a bullet? It's terrible, especially when it goes into the intestines. The shots. Our men will tell us. He told us a few days ago. Maharaj has explained to us the pain. So all this was happening just outside of us, just meters from us, and we were also not talking under the stage. It was just a little horror, you know, when a bomb explodes. Somehow it makes such a sound that it somehow gets to your solar plexus, and you are just very nervous and very afraid. You begin to tremble. The body reacts, although you are in your mind, you may have different ideas, but when the explosion comes, bang! It's so bad, you know. It sounds so bad. So then the wave of the fight went. They were fighting back and forth, shooting machine guns, the whole thing which you can see in films was going on, and then it went to another part of the town, and we heard the military action in another part of the town. So then I said very boldly, my dear public, my dear audience, it's anyways not safe now to leave this building because the helicopters, and who knows, maybe the fight comes back. Please take your seats in the audience, and I will and let us continue with the program. What do you think? And they said, good idea. So we continued with the program. I just changed my lecture title and talked about Mahabharata, the lake of death. You know how Yudhishthira was meeting Yamaraj and answering his questions. And then afterwards, we had a long kirtan. My dear devotees, even those who are tired now, this is a time to listen. Mridanga player ji, you look so sweet when you are asleep, but now you must listen. There was such a kirtan. They really chanted from the heart. And the Lord, I think, heard them. They became so enlivened. In this audience, 9 people became devotees and joined. One was an opera singer, high-class people, because they all could see it, what we saw. We were singing the holy name, and we were protected. The war went to another place. The karma went somewhere else, and the holy name was very, very, very saving all of us, saving our consciousness, freeing us from that inner fear, making us convinced that Krishna comes when you call him with love and affection. That everyone in the audience felt it. It was not a lecture and then everyone forgets it. It was a practical experience, and that's why they became devotees. Later, the war became more intense and we had to flee the country with our car, but we couldn't go on the streets. We brought our car on a train, and then Radha Sharanagati should not go to the army. You know, when the army finds any car, they use it for their purpose. So we didn't want that. We put it on the train. The Germans didn't help us, only the Canadians, which we found, brought us out with the last train which left the inferno of that war. And we were received in Austria, and the reporter said, "What is your experience of the war?" And I said, "I'm a devotee of Krishna, trying to," and I gave a program, and what we saw during the program was that the holy name, that Krishna is really identical with the holy name, and he saved all of us. Wow, they said. And another thing I noticed is this war was not my war. It was the war of people who lead a different life, who are on a different orbit. But Krishna has protected us and helped us to make that program which we really wanted. That's one of the many things, but yes, we have become old and we are still here. In my case, I can only say Prabhupada saved me. He brought me into this when he did not react in a normal way to my provocation, but he chastised me lovingly and convinced me that he is a real well-wisher, and I can only say his gift, the instrument of force, if you so want. You need some means, something to help you in your spiritual path. The holy name really worked. I could see it in Ljubljana and in many other situations. Yesterday I also could see it. You are a little bit sleep deprived, but you were dancing like anything, so energetic. You were dancing, and I heard the kirtan went very long because the holy name is Krishna, and he came in your heart. I wish you all the best on your journey, that you may escape the narrowness of life and enter the vastness of the Krishna conscious experience. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Now we want to hear from Kadamba Kanana Maharaj. Both of us are from Europe, and our paths cross, and I'm always very impressed by the presentation of Krishna consciousness, which is, very deeply thought about things he presents to us. So let us patiently and most important, alertly.
Hare Krishna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Sri Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. I was thinking that in the Satyayug, people that took their birth were such exalted, pious souls. The conditions of life were so ideal, and spiritual life was just the common practice for all. The long duration of life, no disease and all these things. Then the yugas proceeded, and the Treta Yuga, standard of life went down, duration of life went down, some trouble and strife started amongst people, the Varna ashram system came into being. In the Satya Yuga, everyone was Hamsa, they were all transcendentalists. In the Treta Yuga, there was a need for different classes and different dharma for different types of people. Then it came down to Dwapara Yuga, and there was more trouble and strife maybe. We saw the Mahabharata, as Maharaj reminded us of. And then we come to Kali Yuga, which is, well, our time, and therefore anyone who tells of a life experience will sort of have a few tanks in there, and you know, a few grenades, and some bayonets, and some firing squads, and some jails, and some of these crazy things, which I also have in my life. Where to begin? Yeah, I'm from a kind of nice place outside of Amsterdam, because close to the coast, yet there is forest surrounding it. On the south there are famous flower gardens and flower fields, it's all flowery. And what is it? Yeah, then there's the sand dunes as well, so a lot of variety. And it is a director's town. Everyone in the town is a director, basically. So my father, my uncles, my grandfathers, they were all directors of something. Our neighbor on the one side was a director of a museum, and on the other side, our neighbor was a bank director. And so that was destiny, and that was what was meant to be. Uh-oh. That thing is back again. And Kali Yuga, as I said, is different than Satya Yuga. So everything was nice. I grew up, nice place, nice school, nice friends, nice, for a while, until suddenly some sort of drone appeared and just changed everything. The idyllic atmosphere changed. It was not all sweet. It was my father who wanted me to become like him, who turned out to be a problem case. I'd always suspected it, to be honest. I always thought he was, but fortunately he wasn't home that much because he was always traveling on business trips. But then he came home, overworked, and had some sort of nervous breakdown. That was sort of a great shock to the family. A doctor came, and the doctor said, we give him a new cure from America. We give him sleeping pills so that he will sleep for 17 days. I don't know why 17, if it was a magic number or something scientific, but 17 days was the plan. And then when he'll wake up, he'll have some gap between all the stress, and he'll start fresh, and then he can go back to work. Okay, they gave him the pills, and he slept 2 hours. Then it all came out that he had been working on drugs for a long time. That was sort of, well, I'm from the Netherlands, I guess even nice businessmen were taking something. he was working on amphetamines and taking tranquilizers and all these things, and that led to a great breakdown. When he was, I'm giving the serious side of life, as you can see, not the sweet side, and begin there. And he was, the doctor came again and just gave him more pills to sleep a bit longer. And then he still didn't fully sleep. He was lying in the bed, his eyes were rolling in his head, he was drooling, and he said to me, "I am finished." He could hardly speak. And I looked at him and thought, he's got a clear moment right now. He is finished. And he was, in a way. His great career was finished, and my little sweet bubble, where I grew up in, up to that day, was also finished. And suddenly, I questioned everything. I grew up in 5 minutes, really. From a kid, right there, and then I changed and I became an adult. I started to take charge of my life, basically. I mean, that's the difference. A kid is just sort of experimenting with life, but not really taking charge of his destiny. Some stay kids their whole life, yeah? Some stay kids until their 20s, but I stopped at 13, because at 13 I decided, now I have to take control of my life and decide what my destiny will be. So, besides helping out my mother to deal with the situation and, resettling things and reorganizing some external things, that's not so interesting. It was really that moment that was born where I said, yes, now I'm going to take charge of my life. And I started to think, so what do I want out of my life? Well, it was easier to say what I didn't want out of my life, right? Because I didn't know what I wanted out of my life, but I knew for sure I didn't want to be like my father or be what my father wanted me to be. I remember my father used to take me to this shop to buy clothes, and the shop was called the Little Lord, yeah? And I hated that shop. And he would buy me gray pants with a crease, and then he wanted to buy me a gray sweater, a smooth gray sweater with 2 little pockets. God, did I hate that. And he forced me to try it on. And then I saw a bright red one, and I said, I don't want this one, I want that one, the red one. And my mother saved me that day and said, he wants it so much, let him have it. And there it began, I broke out. And so once I was 13, I really took a decision to go somewhere. My parents, they were not really religious. The last time they went to church was for their marriage, and then never again. And they told me when I was a kid that God, whether God exists or not, that's up to you. And I thought, my God, how do I figure this out? So I put that question about God very much on the shelf. And but yet, I saw mystic things. We would go in the forest and there were swans paddling on the waterways, and maybe these swans knew more about it. Extraordinary things would happen that were not normal. When I was 10 years old, the sea froze in the Netherlands. It was inconceivable. Not just, it really froze completely. Some areas cars were driving. We were walking on the sea, and there were huge chunks of ice all over the place, and I could see there is some higher force at work here. This is no longer normal. So although nothing had brought me up in a religious way, I began to sort of perceive something mystic in life. And that kind of became something that intrigued me, even at a young age. Something, a little secret that was mine. That was my own little private secret. Had nothing to do with the grey clothes my father wanted me to wear, or nothing to do even with his breakdown or with all the things we did. Anyway, at 13, things changed quite definitely. We had, and I needed a few more years to grow up. But when I was 15, then I decided, okay, now it's enough. So I'm not staying in this place. And a cousin of mine had a flat in Amsterdam, so I moved in there. And stayed there for some time. But I was in that Amsterdam road, and I went to a party which my cousin had organized, and everyone was about 8 years older. They were all 20. And then this girl came, she was early 20s, and she looked at me and said, "You are a beautiful beast." Right? And she wanted me. And it turned me off right there and then. And I thought, this is going to the bestial platform. Right? And I could see through it. I could see this is not what I want out of life, you know. To go to that gross, bestial platform. And I let it go. I let it go. And I wanted something more noble, something more sacred. But where was it? My father had one good quality. He was also into music. So even when I was a little kid, he taught me a musical instrument. I played a mandolin as a kid, yeah. My sister a ukulele, and we had a band, you know, in the kitchen. We were a kitchen band somehow or other. I don't know why it was in the kitchen, but that's where it was. And so that was my sacred grace, because I had my music. Later on I shifted to guitar and I started to sing and write songs. And there my own inner world grew. That was my world, that no one could touch, that all the madness around me couldn't touch. You know, my father's condition didn't improve so much, it was crazy. The whole family went a bit crazy. Even the dog of my parents went crazy at one point and started to bite people left and right. Madness was around me, but it didn't touch me, because I had that one thing, my music. And in there it was not just an ordinary thing. I searched for the sacred in that music. And I experimented and played in different ways and wrote many songs. And yes, I waited a bit longer, but when I was 17 I really thought, now it's enough. Now I'm gonna travel the world. And so I did. And it wasn't all sweet on the Greek beach where I rented a nice little cabin. I came out in the morning and the soldier put a machine gun in my face and then said, "Mines." Overnight, the army had mobilized. Right? Overnight. It was a Greek island on the Turkish side, and they were afraid of the Turks, and suddenly also an army situation. So I went to the officer in charge and I said, you know, we are civilians, we have nothing to do with this, you should let us go, you should let us leave. He said, there's no more transport. I said, okay, we'll walk, no problem. Yeah. So they finally agreed, and we went with a guide, some 25, 30 kilometers, walk hills and mountains to the harbor. And there was one boat, one passenger boat, and there was a rumor, maybe it will go, maybe it will not go, but the office was still selling tickets. People were umming and ahhing, they couldn't take decisions. I never had that problem, you know. I am always one who can take decisions very fast, right? And so maybe I got that from my father also. That's what directors have, you know, they take decisions. So I took a decision on the spot, said, I buy a ticket. I got the ticket because I was thinking, this boat is owned by some very rich people and they have high connections, and this boat is worth a lot of money and they're gonna get it out of here. And sure enough, the boat went. And I was on the boat and I saw all these people that missed the boat standing ashore. And I was thinking, yes, yes. When the opportunity is there, don't miss the boat. That's what I'll say to Pandavasena also today. When the opportunity is there, don't miss that boat somehow or other. Take it. Don't hesitate. Don't think, shall I not? It's a unique opportunity. And that same mood later came when I started to discover spiritual life. I went to India in search of spiritual life. My story is longer than Sacinandana Maharaj because I took longer to join the Hare Krishna movement. So if I would tell all the things that happened before, it's a much longer story. I mean, I have once in Serbia done the story over a whole week, every day. I gave a full lecture on the story. So, where to begin? Spiritual life didn't start with the Hare Krishna movement. It wasn't a choice between the Rolling Stones and Prabhupada. There was a lot in between, a lot. There were crazy things in between. There was Afghanistan, yes, overland to India many times. And Radhanath Maharaj describes how he was in Kandahar and that there was this opium den. I was in Kandahar, there was a dust storm. It was like, you couldn't see anything, it's just dust. So I didn't see any opium dens. That was good. But when I came to Kabul, we were doing some music there and this beautiful girl came and she just invited us to play in a club and we played. And then she came in the middle of our act and threw a lump of opium in the teapot. And I drank that because she was beautiful, idiot that I was. But men have been known to do crazy things for beautiful girls, so I did. Opanavasena. And then I got so sick that the front door was open for 1 week and the back door closed for 1 week. If you know what I'm talking about. It was very intense. So, actually in Istanbul, I forgot to tell, on the way to India, I saw a butcher shop and whatever was there in that shop was green. So I became a vegetarian right there and then. In Kabul, after that teapot, I sort of followed the second principle, no intoxication. So by the time I came to India, 2 principles down. Gambling was not such an issue, because I didn't have anything to gamble with, because since I left home, my father had not given me a cent. So there was nothing to gamble. And well, principle number 4, let's not talk about that now. That takes time. One cannot just overnight change from day to night. So it took time for that to grow on me. I didn't see the point of it anyway. I couldn't understand it. But little by little, these principles came to me because of experiences in life, where I began to, I got myself into trouble, into suffering, and after that opium experience, I never in my life wrote anything on a toilet door, because that's sort of a low thing to do, but that time I did. And I scratched it in the door with I don't know with what, but I scratched it in the door, and I wrote, I don't want to be an opium plant. So I thought for many people to come, that they may see this, right? Yes, I traveled. I gained a lot from India. I met a yogi. I'm coming to an end because it has to end somewhere. I'm coming to a yogi. I met this yogi, and he started to tell me a story about a young man who went to a forest because he'd seen a desire tree, or he heard about a desire tree in this forest. He went deep into the forest, did not find anything. At night he found a tree, he rested, he sat down. And as he sat down, immediately a tiger appeared out of nowhere, because he was thinking of a tiger. The tiger is thinking, I hope a tiger will not come and kill me. Next moment a tiger came, tiger killed him. Then the story continues that there was a young man who heard about a forest, and that there was a desire tree in that forest. And he went into that forest looking for the desire tree. Found late night a tree, and thought, I hope there are no tigers here. A tiger suddenly appeared, jumped on him and killed him. And a young man heard a story about a forest. It's an ongoing story, and it's the ongoing story of the cycle of birth and death. And the sadhu was taking me into the Bhagavad Gita and explaining that whatever consciousness you have at the end of life works like a desire tree. And that in this way you become like, it shapes your next life. So little by little I saw, I absorbed the Bhagavad Gita, I absorbed I absorbed mantras from India, and little by little transcendental knowledge came about. And by the time I got Prabhupada's Gita and I was reading it, I was thinking, I know all this, while I was still smoking cigarettes and blowing smoke rings through smoke rings. Yes, 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 I know all of this. So it took time to come down and to become more humble, to become humbled by life itself, by hardship and by struggle. And it is in that way that gradually I began to take it serious. That, you know, I came to the temple in Vrindavan and I stayed there, and I became the servant of a sannyasi, and he was so strict. He was very strict, and he would be sleeping 2 hours at night, 3 hours a day, or something like that. And one night, somehow or other, I was in my sleeping bag, and I guess I'd eaten too much, but I passed air, and he was up chanting on the roof, and he heard me. He heard this, you know. And he said, "Aha, you are awake! Get up and start chanting." No, this can't be. I looked at my watch, it was 12:30. I thought, this can't be true. I just act as if I'm asleep. I'm not going to get up at 12:30. It was too much. Then one day, I told him, I said, before, you know, sometimes, I said, this is too much, 12:30. I was fast asleep, I could not be awoken. A few days later, I told him that sometimes my mind was disturbed, because I said before I had a girlfriend. He said, oh, that may take some time, that may take some time. It may take 10 years. And after that he said something which I didn't hear, because I only heard 10 years, 10 years, 10 years. I'm never gonna last 10 years. Anyway, that's how I became a grihasta. I went to get my girlfriend, and it was also a whole story. And yeah, that girlfriend had, of course, a dog, and that dog's name was Krishna, somehow or other. And by calling that dog, I was chanting, and I was making more advancement. And gradually, the network of Krishna consciousness coming into my life, became more tight. It was just everywhere. Krishna, Krishna. I always met Krishna. I didn't really want it so much, but I just met it everywhere, until I came to the point that I got very sick, like in India. I was in the Hare Krishna temple, and after that sannyasi who was so strict, it got too much for me. And after that girlfriend thing, my head was spinning. It was very hot, I got a boil on my head. I went into the temple. Next to the altar there was a room, I had to do some service down there. And just then the head pujari, who was French, he came and he was carrying something. So the door was in his way, he kicked it. And it hit me. I had this boil on the side of my head here from the heat. And it hit me on that boil. And then he said with a sweet French accent, "You idiot! Can you not see that I am walking here?" You know, the French language has a sting, you know? And when it is used in that way, it really stung me. And I stood there and saw all the planets of the universe. And I, right there and then, sort of decided that I was going to take a vacation from Krishna consciousness. So the next morning, when the devotees were chanting Hare Krishna, or Govindam Adipurusham, I sneaked out the back door. Then, I went to the city of Benares, which I knew, and there, an old sadhu came with a beard, out of nowhere. He sat next to me, didn't speak a word. He had an ekatar. He started playing it, and he started chanting Hare Krishna. 45 minutes it lasted, and I realized, my God, you know. And he ended, didn't say a word, stood up and walked away. To make it more dramatic, if he would have said something, it would have been come down to a normal realm. But it was just too much, and I had just escaped. And here comes this sadhu with Krishna. I was shocked. Next morning, I come out of the hotel, and there's a Harinam party in the street. Indian people, chanting Hare Krishna. I said, this place is bewitched. I'm getting out of here. But where to go? I said, let me go to the Tibetan Buddhists. There's no Krishna there. And I came there, got that dysentery on the train. And when I came there, I was very ill. And there was this, so someone said, go to the Tibetan doctor. I went. The waiting room was full with people, one empty chair next to someone who was yellow like a banana. I thought, oh, I'll sit there, I hope I won't get what he's got. But I did get it. 2 weeks later, I was yellow like a banana. And I tell you, I was knocked out for 5 months with severe jaundice. And from me, 17 people got hospitalized. It was a severe case. And there it was, you know. I already had a few principles down, but in that jaundice, you know, although I'd left the temple, I was forced to continue with the 4 regulated principles because I was contagious and I had no energy, couldn't do anything. The clouds from Afghanistan. I was going down the staircase and looked at the letterbox. And in the letterbox there was a letter from the Vrindavan temple. In those days the Krishna Balaram letterheads, they were white envelopes with a yellow profile of the temple on it. And I got a letter like that. So immediately I said, oh my God, that's a letter from Vrindavan. I opened the letter from Vrindavan and it said only, very short letter. It said, now that you've left the temple, I'm sure you've started intoxication again. And it was the only time I ever did that since I left the temple. And I go, oh no. Every time I take a step away from Krishna, something happens, something mystic happens. And so it continued. So I finally decided, well, maybe then I should go back to the temple. And I did. And yeah, as I said, I could talk to you for a week about this and cover the full story in full color. But I moved back into the temple. And yeah, what happened then, I'll tell you to make it a little colorful, otherwise too boring. After smoking that stuff from Afghanistan, I sort of smoked a little more. And also started smoking tobacco again. So I thought I'd smoke my last cigarette on the way to the temple on the train. Then I still had a walk. I thought I could smoke one more. Right? And then I managed to smoke the very last one. So smoking the very last cigarette of my life. And I took a deep, deep puff of the thing, threw my cigarettes into the canal opposite of the temple, rang the doorbell, and said, "Can I move in the temple?" And the devotee said, "Well, come in." And he said, "Sit down." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Read that magazine." I said, "Oh, I already read it, you know. I have it, I already read it." He said, "A devotee can read it again and again." So, before Krishna consciousness, I had two books, a Bhagavad Gita and a Krishna book. And I thought the Krishna book was like an unreadable book. And the reason was because, you know, here comes a demon, there comes Krishna, 1, 2, 3, demon dead. Yeah? I thought there's no plot in this book, you know, you don't want to look at the last page, who wins, Krishna or the demon, sort of thing. So I didn't like it. And then, but that day, I was sitting there reading this magazine that I read before, and I read it again and again. And each time I found something more. And after a while the devotee came back and said, and I wove at him, so from, "Yeah, I'm here." And he just said, "Just stay there," so, with his hand. So I kept on reading, and I was reading the magazine the whole day. And I got so many realizations that it's full, that it was so full of so many things. And I actually realized that is Krishna consciousness. Not always something new, but going deeper and deeper into the details of Krishna's pastimes, and in connecting with Krishna, and you just discover more and more. And thus, I became serious that day, and then I stayed for a while until I took another vacation, which is another story, which I'm not telling today. But anyway, Krishna again interfered, and again did many things. I went to a movie, I was in Maya, I went to a movie, and in the movie suddenly there are Hare Krishnas. But the tilak was wrong, no leaf on the nose. I said, something wrong with these guys. And they go into a bar, and some girls sit in their lap, and a voice, and they order some beers, and a voice says, "It's good to have a drink after a hard day's work." I was so angry. So I could see Krishna consciousness has now gone inside. I can no longer actually run away from it because it's with me everywhere. And Krishna is there and he's doing things in my life. So then I could see, now I better really get serious and stay. And really stay. And not leave again. And so, as of late, I've made it to Germany, sort of in this forest with a few houses. And let's see where Krishna will bring us next. It's an endless adventure. But I know it's going to end in Vrindavan, that's for sure. So in that way, my spiritual life began in Vrindavan, and I'm sure it will